Hi, my name's Kevin Wade Lynch, and in this smart figure, I will be talking about Chrysora quinsensira. I know that's a mouthful, but don't worry. I'm going to take you through it step by step. Little shout out to our narrator in our textbook. She's very good at explaining the text in layman's terms in an entertaining way. But golly, I think she's narrating my dreams now. I hear her in my sleep. But anyway, I digress. My name is Kevin Lynch, and I will be talking about Chrysora quinsensira, aka otherwise known as the Atlantic Sea Nettle. And I chose this guy because in my younger surfer days, I've had a couple of close encounters with this fella. So he has been seared into my memory. So the Atlantic Sea Nettle can be found along the U.S. East Coast from Cape Cod south into the Caribbean, all the way into the Gulf of Mexico. The size and colorations vary by location, especially among the populations found in different parts of Chesapeake Bay, um, where most of those the population varies so greatly and is so big in the Chesapeake Bay. They have different varieties, different colorations just in Chesapeake Bay, where they're more abundant than any other location. On the bottom left of this slide, you can see the scientific classifications listed down there. I'm not going to try to read all of those because I will certainly butcher them. But a couple of the more common names is the sea nettle, which covers nettles on the Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean, or the East Coast sea nettle. And now some interesting little facts about the sea nettle. Although the cannonball jellyfish is the most common in our waters off the South Carolina coast and especially around the Charleston area, it's quite harmless. The Atlantic sea nettle, on the other hand, is responsible for most of the jellyfish stings in the South Carolina waters. Um, so if you're swimming out there at Folly Beach or Isle of Ponds or something like that, this is probably the jellyfish you want to avoid. And although the toxin is mild, the Atlantic sea nettle sting is moderate to severe, painful, and can cause severe reactions in people sensitive to its sting, which is pretty much the same with anything venomous. But I can attest to the agony that this jellyfish causes because I have been stung across my chest and I have had one wrap around my ankle. And both times I became very, very sick for at least a couple of days. So you want to avoid these guys at all costs. Now, and I've placed photographs all throughout the presentation, so you've got all kinds of different angles, so you can avoid this thing at all costs. So the venom, they do hunt by paralysis, by catching the prey in their long tentacles, and can and do feed constantly because their many tentacles can function independently from each other. I didn't really know that. I thought that was pretty interesting because I didn't know jellyfish. I thought they were maybe like snakes and just ate once a month or something like that. But apparently these guys are pretty voracious. In the open ocean, they have a something else that's pretty cool. In the open ocean, they have a symbiotic relationship with blue crabs. Um, the crabs ride on the bell and clean off debris and parasites as they're swimming along the bottom. So um, I tried to look for some video of that, couldn't find any, but I'm going to try a little bit harder because I think that's pretty cool and pretty interesting. So and I kind of touched on this a little bit about Chesapeake Bay, but in the spring and summer, swarms can grow so large in the bay there that officials have to close beaches. So it's not just one variety either. There's a couple of different species that can really swarm in Chesapeake Bay for some reason. I guess the waters there are just the right conditions, right place, right time scenario. So I thought that was pretty cool too. So in the photograph there, you can see some of the anatomy of the jellyfish. A lot of that's actually pretty common with most jellyfish, at least the basic parts anyway. Some of the neat little attributes of the East Coast nettle is that the average bell diameter is about 10 centimeters, and the height of that bell is about 5 centimeters, so it's about twice as big in diameter as it is high. It has four thick, long, lacy arms that grip prey and anywhere from 40 to 40 thread-like tentacles that are attached to sensory lobes on the bell. and each of those can reach up to about 50 centimeters. The nettles, the Pacific Coast nettles off the West Pacific Coast, they can get up to 3 feet in diameter. So imagine getting caught up in one of those guys. It has both coronal and radial muscles that they use for swimming. So they don't just drift along and just hope something passes on along underneath them, which they will catch anything that gets close to them. But they do have the ability to swim. Mostly are transparent, but the bell may have some coloration that will vary by location. And a lot of the photographs I put in my presentation with that kind of orangey brownish stripe that's on them, that's all the ones I've seen in Charleston area, whether they're dead on the beach or I've seen out in the water, that's the kind that I've seen around here. So um, and these little guys are highly adaptable to different levels of salinity, which I thought was kind of neat. They can even survive in brackish water. So even at times of low salinity where the water is getting diluted or something like that, these guys can thrive in those kind of conditions. And finally, a couple of ecological facts about the Atlantic sea nettle. It is a voracious carnivore. Its preferred prey is comb jellies. So it is a cannibalistic animal, just as most jellies are, I think. But it also eats small fish, copepods, young minnows, mosquito larvae, which is not a bad thing in Charleston, zooplankton, and bay anchovies, or actually bay anchovy, their eggs, but when they swarm in the spring up in Chesapeake Bay, they have a big anchovy fishery up there. That's a big industry of theirs in Chesapeake Bay. And during these swarms, they could really decimate the populations of anchovies up there. So these guys are really a headache for those guys up there in Chesapeake Bay. When the Atlantic sea nettle reaches sexual maturity, the female produces eggs that they hold in their oral arms. You can see the oral arms in the anatomy photo that I had in the previous slide. The male releases sperm into the water, and the female uses her oral arms and tentacles to bring the sperm to the eggs. Atlantic sea nettles live for about a year and are broadly distributed in tepid waters along the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, as well as in the Western Pacific. They do not have any natural predators other than the leatherback turtle and the ocean sunfish, which they cannot eat very much. So the populations are very abundant worldwide where they like to habitate. So another little interesting thing is that in some Asian countries, they are known as a delicacy. They are harvested and fished in some Asian countries as well. So, but that does conclude my presentation. I do appreciate you being with me for this short time, and I look forward to seeing all the other students as well that may be learning a little something um, about some of yours. So, thank you for watching.